My name is Alina Brooks. I was 18 years old when my father stood in the middle of our kitchen, looked me in the eye, and said, "No daughter of mine needs college." Then he took my acceptance letter from the University of Michigan and dropped it into the sink. He turned on the faucet and watched the ink bleed. My stepmother didn't move. My little brother kept eating his cereal, and I stood there holding a scholarship I had worked 4 years for, dissolving into gray water. I thought that was the moment he took everything from me. I was wrong. Because what my father didn't know, what he had never bothered to check, was that the house he was standing in wasn't his. And in less than 3 weeks, that mistake would cost him more than my tuition ever could. But to understand how we got there, you need to understand my father. Daniel Brooks built his identity around one sentence: my house, my rules. He said it at least twice a week, sometimes more. The thermostat stayed at 65 degrees in winter because heat builds laziness. Dinner was at 6 sharp. No phones at the table. No backtalk. No wasting time on things that didn't produce income. He believed sons were investments. Daughters were responsibilities. And responsibilities didn't need degrees. I learned early not to argue. Arguing didn't lead to conversation. It led to silence. The heavy kind. The kind where he wouldn't look at you for days, which somehow felt worse than yelling. My mother died when I was 11. Car accident. Rain. Highway 14. Drunk driver crossed the median. After the funeral, my father changed in ways that didn't look dramatic at first. He stopped saying her name. He stopped keeping her photos out. He stopped asking what I wanted. Instead, he started assigning. At 12, I was cooking dinner twice a week. At 14, I was doing the grocery lists. At 16, I was handling online bill payments because he said I needed to learn real skills. He called it preparing me for adulthood. It felt more like replacing someone. But here's the part he never talked about. The house. The 2-story colonial on Briarwood Lane with the blue shutters and the cracked third step on the porch. He called it his. He paid the utilities. He fixed the roof once. He mowed the lawn every Saturday morning like the neighbors were grading him. But the deed? The deed was never in his name. And he knew that once. He just forgot. Or maybe he assumed, which is worse. Now let me tell you about the letter. I didn't apply to college loudly. I did it quietly, like a secret escape plan. Late-night essays after everyone went to sleep. Applications submitted from the library computer. Recommendation letters sent to my school counselor's email instead of home. Because my father checked the mailbox like it owed him money. When the acceptance email came, I read it 3 times before I believed it. Then I printed it at school. And I made the mistake of bringing it home. Sunday dinner, pot roast, green beans. My stepmother, Carla, talking about sales at the hardware store. I waited until plates were full. Until he took his first bite. "Dad," I said. "I got into Michigan. They offered me $18,000 a year." He didn't react at first. He just chewed, swallowed, set his fork down, and asked one question. "Who's paying the rest?" "I can take loans," I said. Silence. Then he laughed. Not loudly. Worse. Short. Dismissive. "No daughter of mine is going into debt for a degree she doesn't need." He reached across the table, took the letter, walked to the sink, and turned on the water. I watched the blue university seal blur, the signature smear. 4 years of AP classes and late-night studying dissolve into pulp. "You'll start at Whitman's Auto Supply after graduation," he said calmly. "I already talked to Gary. He's got a counter position for you, 30 hours a week." He had arranged my future, without asking me. That was the moment something inside me stopped being afraid, because he made one critical mistake. He said, "As long as you live under my roof, you follow my rules." My roof. That sentence echoed. My roof. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt certain. Because 2 months earlier, in a safety deposit box at First National Bank, I had seen paperwork my father had completely forgotten existed. Paperwork with one name typed clearly at the top. Mine. He thought he was denying me an education. He didn't realize he was about to negotiate for his address, and he would find out soon enough. But first, there was one more thing he tried to do, and that's where this really begins. My father didn't just ruin the letter, he followed up. The next morning at 7:12 a.m., he was already on the phone. I know because I was standing at the top of the stairs when I heard him say, "She won't be attending. I'm her legal guardian." Pause. Yes, I understand she's 18. Longer pause. No, she does not have independent financial standing. That last part made me smile, because he was wrong. What my father didn't know was this. 3 months earlier, I had met with my mother's attorney. Not because I was planning revenge, because I was curious. My mom's sister, Aunt Rebecca, had reached out after my 18th birthday. Just a quiet message. "When you're ready, there's something you should see." I met her at a cafe 2 towns over. She brought a thin manila folder. Inside it was a copy of my mother's will, and attached to it, a trust. The Briarwood Lane property was placed in a revocable living trust 12 years ago. Primary beneficiary upon my 18th birthday, Alina Brooks. Not Daniel Brooks, me. My father had the right to reside in the property while I was a minor. That clause ended the day I turned 18. He had signed those documents himself. I saw the signature. Bold, confident, probably assuming I'd never look. Back in the kitchen, he ended the call with Michigan and muttered, "Handled." Then he looked at me and said something that almost made me laugh. "You don't have the backbone for college anyway." That's when I decided not to argue, not to scream, not to cry, just to move quietly. That afternoon, I drove to First National Bank. I asked for access to the safety deposit box listed under the Brooks Family Trust. The bank manager checked my ID, typed something into her system. Then her tone changed. "Oh, you're the successor beneficiary." Successor. That word felt like oxygen. Inside the box were the original trust documents, the deed, property tax records, insurance policy copies, all in my mother's handwriting tabs, organized, prepared, like she had known. The trust language was clear. Daniel Brooks retained occupancy rights only while acting as legal guardian. Upon beneficiary reaching legal age, ownership control transfers fully. No ambiguity, no verbal agreement, no gray area. My father wasn't the homeowner. He was a permitted occupant, and he didn't know that status had expired. Now here's where it escalates, because I didn't immediately confront him. First, I called the attorney listed on the trust. Thomas Hale, mid-50s, direct voice, no fluff. He reviewed everything and said one sentence I'll never forget. "If your father attempts to block your education or exert control over the property, you have leverage." Leverage. Not revenge. Leverage. He explained the process calmly. Step 1. Provide written notice of intent to exercise ownership rights. Step 2. Offer voluntary compliance. Step 3. If necessary, file for unlawful detainer. It sounded clinical, clean. Nothing like the emotional chaos in my kitchen. Meanwhile, my father escalated in his own way. He contacted Whitman's Auto Supply again. He filled out onboarding paperwork with my name. He even posted on Facebook, "Proud of my daughter for choosing responsibility over fantasy." Fantasy, people commented. Good parenting. College is overrated. You're raising her right. He was building public support. He was rewriting the narrative before I even spoke. Small towns love a strong father figure story. They don't question paperwork. That night, he knocked on my bedroom door without waiting for an answer. "You'll go down to Gary's tomorrow," he said. "Sign the employment contract." "I'm not signing anything," I said. He stepped inside fully. "You think you have a choice?" And that's when I said it. Calm. Measured. "Yes." He laughed again. That short, dismissive sound. "As long as you're in my house." He didn't finish, because I interrupted. "Is it?" Silence. Not long. But enough. His jaw tightened. "What did you just say?" "I asked if it's your house." The temperature in that room changed. He took one step closer. "You're being disrespectful." "No," I said quietly. "I'm being informed." He stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. I didn't push further. Not yet. Because legal leverage works best when the other person still thinks they're in control. But here's what he didn't know. That afternoon, Thomas Hale had already drafted a formal notice, and it was scheduled for delivery by certified mail, 48 hours from now. My father thought he had crushed my future. What he didn't realize was that the clock had already started ticking on his residency, and when the envelope arrived, the one with my name and the return address, he was going to learn something very simple. Control built on assumption collapses fast, and he was about to find out. There was one more thing he tried to do, and that's where this really begins. The certified letter arrived on Thursday at 10:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I was watching from the living room window. The mail truck always came between 10:15 and 10:30. My father liked routines. He believed routines meant control. He signed for the envelope without checking the sender. Big mistake. He didn't open it immediately. He set it on the counter, finished his coffee, checked his phone, turned on the news. He was calm, because he assumed everything that entered that house belonged to him. At 10:42 a.m., he slid it open. I watched his face change in stages. First confusion, then focus, then stillness. The letter was simple. Formal notice of beneficiary assumption of property control. Effective immediately. It cited the trust clause. It referenced Pennsylvania property code. It outlined his current status as occupant at will. It offered two options. 1. Voluntary written acknowledgement of new ownership and agreement to reasonable occupancy terms. 2. Formal filing for unlawful detainer within 30 days. Signed, Alina Brooks. The room went quiet. He read it twice. Then he looked up, at me, standing there, not hiding. "Is this a joke?" he asked. "No." His voice dropped. "Where did you get this?" "Mom left it." That word hit him harder than the legal language. Mom. He folded the paper carefully. Too carefully, like it might explode. "You think you can threaten me in my own home?" There it was again. My own home. He walked toward me slowly. Measured steps. The way he used to when I was 12 and had forgotten to defrost the chicken. "You don't understand how the real world works," he said. "I do," I replied. "I met with an attorney." That stopped him, not emotionally, strategically. He hadn't prepared for outside involvement. He hadn't prepared for documentation. He hadn't prepared for me to act quietly. He grabbed his phone and walked outside. Within an hour, he was on the phone with someone. Then another call. Then another. By 2 p.m., he had spoken to 2 local attorneys. Both told him the same thing. The trust was valid. The deed was clean. His occupancy rights ended when I turned 18. He could fight it, but it would not go well. At 4 p.m., he came back inside. Anger had been replaced with something sharper. Calculation. "You want to go to college?" he asked. "Yes." "You think humiliating me is the way to do it?" "This isn't about humiliation. It's about ownership." He laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "You going to throw me out?" "I haven't decided." That was the first time in my life I had leverage over him, and he felt it. That evening, the Facebook post disappeared. The proud father narrative quietly deleted. By Friday morning, the town whispers started shifting, because someone at First National Bank had a cousin who knew someone, and paperwork spreads faster than gossip when it's stamped. Carla, my stepmother, approached me in the kitchen that night. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "Yes." She didn't look angry. She looked tired. "Your mother always handled the paperwork," she said. There was history in that sentence. History my father never thought mattered. Saturday morning, he tried one more tactic. Emotional leverage. He stood in the doorway of the living room. "You'd put your own father on the street?" "You tried to put my future in one." That landed. He didn't shout. He didn't slam anything. Instead, he did something I had never seen before. He sat down at the kitchen table and said nothing. Silence used to belong to him. Now it belonged to me. But here's the part that changed everything. Because this was never about eviction, it was about terms. And Sunday evening, I placed a second document in front of him. Not a notice, an agreement. If he wanted to stay, there were conditions. And reading them was the first time he realized his authority was officially over. That afternoon, Thomas Hale had already drafted a formal notice, and it was scheduled for delivery by certified mail. 48 hours from now, Sunday night, 6:03 p.m., same kitchen table, same cracked third porch step outside, different balance of power. I slid the document across to him. Occupancy agreement, 12 pages, drafted by Thomas Hale, clear, structured, legal. He didn't touch it at first. He just stared at it like it offended him. "You're serious," he said. "Yes." He finally picked it up. The terms were simple: month-to-month occupancy, market-adjusted contribution toward property taxes and insurance. No interference with beneficiary's education. No financial decisions made on behalf of beneficiary. No representation of ownership publicly or privately. Written acknowledgement of trust control transfer. Violation would trigger immediate filing. No drama, no yelling, just paper. He read silently for almost 2 full minutes. And here's what changed, for the first time in my life. He wasn't speaking. He was processing. "You planned this," he said finally. "No," I replied. "Mom did." That hit harder than anything else, because it reframed everything. This wasn't rebellion. It was inheritance. He leaned back in his chair. "You'd really take me to court?" "Yes." Silence. Carla stood near the stove, not pretending to cook anymore. She looked at him carefully, like she was watching a structure decide whether to collapse. "You told her this was your house," she said quietly. He didn't answer. Because technically, legally, provably, it wasn't. He looked smaller sitting there. Not physically, structurally. Authority without ownership is just noise. "Fine," he muttered. "I'll sign." But he didn't sign yet. He added one condition. "You go to Michigan," he said. "You handle it yourself. Loans, housing, everything." I already planned to. That answer surprised him, because control only works when someone needs permission. I didn't. He signed at 6:27 p.m. I remember the time because I checked my phone afterward. Daniel Brooks, under occupant, not owner. When the pen left the paper, something invisible shifted. He didn't lose a house. He lost assumption, and assumption had been his foundation. The next week, I enrolled officially, paid my housing deposit, signed my loan paperwork, filed everything myself. Michigan sent a welcome packet. This time, I didn't bring it to the dinner table. I opened it at the bank, because paperwork belongs near safety. The town adjusted quietly. Facebook narratives faded. Gary at Whitman's Auto Supply stopped asking when I'd start. Someone leaked the truth about the trust. Small towns correct themselves slowly, but they do. 3 weeks before move-in day, my father knocked on my bedroom door. He didn't enter without permission. That was new. "You leave in August?" he asked. "Yes." He nodded once. Long pause. I shouldn't have said what I said. That was it. Not an apology, not fully, but the closest he had ever come. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't. "I know," I said instead. He stood there a moment longer, then walked away. Move-in day came fast, car loaded, boxes labeled, dorm assignment printed. When I stepped onto campus, it felt different than I imagined. Not cinematic, not dramatic, just wide, open, possible. My phone buzzed that evening. A text from him. "Send address for rent check." That's when I understood something. He wasn't defeated. He was adjusting. Power hadn't vanished. It had restructured. He pays his portion on the 1st of every month. On time. No comments, no claims. The deed is still in my name. The house is still legally mine. And I'm halfway through my degree now. Pre-law. Funny how that works. Because once you understand leverage, you never unlearn it. Here's the truth. He tried to control my education. He forgot to check ownership. He said no daughter of mine needs college. But the house? The house was already in my name. And the difference between control and authority is paperwork. So tell me honestly, would you have let him stay? Or would you have filed? I read every comment. And if you're building something quietly right now, don't announce it. Secure it. Then move. Because the strongest power shifts are the ones no one sees coming. But here's the part that changed everything. Because this was never about eviction, it was about terms. And Sunday evening, I placed a second document in front of him. Not a notice, an agreement. If he wanted to stay, there were conditions. And reading them was the first time he realized his authority was officially over. That afternoon, Thomas Hale had already drafted a formal notice, and it was scheduled for delivery by certified mail, 48 hours from now. My father thought he had crushed my future. What he didn't realize was that the clock had already started ticking on his residency. And when the envelope arrived, the one with my name in the return address, he was going to learn something very simple. Control built on assumption collapses fast, and he was about to find out. There was one more thing he tried to do, and that's where this really begins.